You and Tyler seem to have an epic battle almost every time y'all roll out on the track. Tonight was no different. Tell me about how you and Tyler work things out, how you guys go about what you guys do.
Well, it's not really going about anything. It's like I get close to him and then I'm winding up with a wrecked race car almost every time. And luckily, like for both of our race cars' sake, they threw the caution and we never made it back to turn one because I was not going to be in second place when we got back to turn one.
He talks about how he raced me clean for the entire race, but he stuck me in the wall off it too. It is what it is. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk in a couple weeks and everything will be hunky-dory and then we'll have another run, and I don't know. Just try to keep our cars off of each other and keep racing hard. You know, you run up front with somebody every week, you're bound to kind of make some contact every now and then, so.
This is going to be an entirely different video than anything I've ever done before on my channel, and that's because the day that you were watching this, it has been 3 years since I jumped on this guy's car. So I've done a lot of podcasts, I've done a couple videos on it, and everybody kind of knows my side of the story and what happened that night. And we're going to get Tyler's side of the story tonight, and we're also going to look back on our rivalry a good bit. So I'm not really going to talk too much. I'm probably just going to ask more questions, but I think it would be informative and cool just to hear his side of everything and kind of what he thought of me in the heat of our rivalry, because everybody's heard what I've thought of Tyler. I want to start off by saying too, I don't hate Tyler. I just think he's a bad driver, and he's a clown when he's in the race car. And
I mean, 2020 was, man, it obviously a COVID year, right? So we came out that first race. And I was out. I remember the first race. I was out front leading, and you were tracking me down. And I was like, shit. Like I pretty much knew you were gonna get me. So you got to me. You got inside me clean, and we were racing pretty hard side by side. And like through our rivalry, like whenever I heard like the 88 is 2 out back, 1 out back, and you were coming to me, I'm sure you've probably felt the same way. Like you probably just drove a little bit harder, or when you were up next to me or I was next to you, I'm sure you drove me a little bit harder, and I always did that when you were coming. So you got to my inside and we were racing pretty hard, and you squeezed me in the wall a little bit. Like it was just barely.
I don't remember this, but
you said I got a night. Yeah, opening night.
Okay.
So, like, I felt like we settled our differences at the end of 19. But it was so light, I mean, it was literally just a racing deal. But I was like, all right, like, I'll remember that one. So we got down to that last restart, and we got the green. We went through 1 and 2, and I didn't get the best restart that I wanted. I didn't really hang with you that great up off of 2.
Barnes gets a great start. Tyler Hughes trying to give chase down into turns 1 and 2. They're going to be side by side off turn number 2 down the back straightaway.
And I was already on your right rear quarter, and I was like, all right, I can either try to get back to your outside, which I don't really think I'm going to have the progress to kind of make that work, or I can get behind you and try to move you. And we went down in the 3, and I had every intention of moving you, and I picked you up and slid you right across the nose. And
to the inside, now he'll bump on the inside.
Man, I just remember, like, at first I thought it was really aggressive, and then, like, it was just a 4-wheel slide, and I was like, oh, he's gonna catch it, and I just gassed up and went.
I remember this now, yeah.
So I drove by you. I I was just getting to the start-finish line, and they wrecked behind us.
And we got spinning coming off of turn at number 3 and 4. A little bump and run from Tyler Hughes on Doug Barnes.
And the rule was you got one attempt, and if you didn't complete it, that they went back to the last completed lap. So therefore, you had the lead, so you inherited the win.
P1.
Yeah. So
Do you remember why that last caution came out?
I thought they started wrecking behind you, didn't they?
Not the very final one that ended the race, the one prior to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. So,
damn it.
I made a video, one of my first videos I ever made is called like the craziest night of racing or something like that. And it was basically a night in 2019, which he was talking about how we hashed it out. We had a night in 2019 where everything just completely hit the fan. Like it was a mess.
Yeah.
Like the whole night, like me and him wrecked each other twice. His car owner, Paul Green, and my brother were in the field as well. They were wrecking each other. Then Paul started wrecking me. Trent wrecked Tyler. And then the whole fight broke out at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So on the race that he was talking about in 2020,
This is after we hashed it all out.
Yeah, this is after we were recovered. We were fine. We were talking during the off season and everything. And then I think it had to be with 5 to go. No, it had to be with 3 to go because it was a green white checker.
Yeah.
So with 3 to go, I was leading. And we were lapping Paul Green, who he owned your stuff, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so we were lapping Paul Green, who owned Tyler's car and also his own car, and he cut across me in the same fashion almost that everything broke out in 2019, and that was the reason why we stacked it back up.
7 laps to go down the back straightaway. Paul Green, the next car in front of Doug Barnes. Paul Green is the car owner to Tyler Hughes, who runs second. Barnes comes in and gets into the back end of Paul Green and turns him around down into turn number 1.
I want to say Willie was spotting for him, and like that deal was totally an accident. Like I don't think that Willie totally called it that you were coming and got him out of the way in time. So that deal was totally accidental. But I'm sure from the outside looking in, like it did not look.
It didn't seem accidental.
Yeah.
So with that, and then with the mixture of Tyler sending me off into 3, just as much as he thought like, okay, I'll remember that, I had the same feeling. Like I had the same feeling going into the next race. I'm like, okay, well, even though I won, I'm going to remember this in the back of my head. I'm like, he was a car length away from me not winning that race. Like, had you crossed the line, I probably would have finished 5th.
Yeah.
Like, I was gone.
And then the stuff happens with the 11 car, which is Tyler's teammate. And then he just goes out there and runs through me. Like, he tries to get into my seat in turn 3. And luckily, like, for both of our race cars' sake, they threw the caution, and we never made it back to turn 1 because I was not going to be in second place when we got back to turn 1.
Second race of the season.
Yeah.
So our big wreck happened on race 3 of that season. So race 2, we weren't having that great of a night. I think we were running 4th, and you were coming by us. And the same thing happened again. Like, we just barely touched doors, and I think I might have went into the wall a little bit, and I was like, fuck, like, that's like 2 weeks in a row. So, like, I never said nothing to you, and, like, I think that night we got through fairly clean. And then the big one happened, race 3. We come out, and I don't even remember how I was running that night. I think I was...
You were 4th.
Yeah, I was 4th. I don't remember if we had a good car or a bad car, but, I mean, we were running halfway decent. And I just remember we had a red flag, and I was sitting there, and like the stuff from prior weeks had happened, and I was like, fuck, like I gotta line up next. I figured I was gonna line up next to you, and I'm like, fuck, like I just hope we get through this one clean. And we had that restart, and like looking back on it, like I thought at the time, in the moment in the car, I thought you had hit me again and sent me into the wall, which is what happened. But was I holding you tight? Yes, I was. Like, and I didn't realize that until I went back and watched the video. Not realizing that in the moment, when we touched, it sent me sideways. I made contact with the wall. And then if you watch the video slow enough, there was someone who hit me right after I got into the wall. I think it was Davey. And at that point, like, I just was kind of seeing red. And in the car, like, there was something broke at the time, or I don't know what was broke now because the car.
Yeah, something was broke.
So there was smoke in the car, whether it was a flat right rear or a broken track bar mount. It felt like the rear was moving around in the car, and I just, at the time, I was seeing red, and I was just going to make sure I got to your bumper to make sure you went around. And I drove it down in the corner, and I didn't lift until I got to your rear bumper. And when we made contact, you went around, and I thought I could save it, but that wasn't the case. Both cars went into the outside wall. Everybody's seen the damn video, and it was a hell of a hit. Did I mean for us to wreck as bad as what we did? No, that was never my intention. Was I seeing red? Did I get to your rear bumper on purpose? Yes, I did. Looking back, I regret it because, I mean, destroyed a couple $100,000 race cars, and I walked away with a concussion that sat me out for 3 months. And some of the effects of that concussion, you know, it affected me, you know, obviously for a while. And I hate that I had to go through that, and I hate that we destroyed 2 race cars like that looking back on it. I felt really dumb. I kept really silent on a lot of social media. There was a lot of chatter going back and forth between, you know, your team, my team, and your fan base and my fan base, and what happened. And at the end of the day, like, I made the decision to make sure that you went around, and you went around, but you know, like I said, I regret doing it, but it happened, and it is what it is now.
So obviously everything that happened with the wreck, but now with me jumping onto the car, do you have any memory of that? Did you know that happened?
So, kind of, sort of. So, like, there was a rumor going around that I was unconscious in the car, and I wasn't totally unconscious. Like, I was very much out of it, but I wasn't totally unconscious. Like, I was, you know, awake. I was moving around. I remember a lot of it. So I hit my knee on the steering column really bad.
Same.
And it fucking hurt.
Yeah.
Really bad. And you know, knee was hurting really bad. The wind was knocked out of me, and my head hurt really bad. Like, it felt like someone hit me over the head with a bat. And I was just sitting there trying to collect myself together, and I just heard, hey, 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 and then I just hear a loud boom. And I'm like, hey, get off the fucking car. And I didn't know what the hell happened. I didn't see, like, you know, trying to come through the windshield or anything. I just remember hearing things and a loud boom, and, like, I was so out of it. I was just like, I don't even fucking care. Like, whatever. There's enough people around me, they'll handle it, you know. So later on, like, I got out of the car, and I think they told me you jumped on my windshield, and then, like, I had gone to the hospital that night because I started feeling worse, and I stayed overnight in the hospital. I was in really bad shape. And I woke up the next morning, and I think my mom was there, and she was hanging out with me, and I get this text from the girl I was dating at the time, and she was like, there's a video trending, like, on Twitter of Doug trying to jump through your windshield, and I pull it up. I was like, holy shit, I don't remember that happening. But yeah, it's pretty hilarious now, like, to sit back and watch it. I don't know where you thought you were going with that.
Well, see, initially, like, when it happened, because, like, a lot of times, you can agree with this, like, a lot of times when you wreck in racing, even if it's just a split second, you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody spins in front of you and you lock it up, you have that split second where you lock it up and you slide into them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you might be in a big race and you're checking up and you, like, are aware that you're about to get hit from behind, or probably get hit from behind.
Yeah.
But, like, this is the only wreck I've ever been a part of where I had no idea where it was coming from.
Yeah.
So I heard coming out of the corner, like, when we were side by side. I do remember you, like, running me really tight. Like, I remember I had a car on my door and I was, like, half a car width lower than Peyton, who was in front of us.
Yeah.
And then I heard clear. I'm like, okay, well, there's no issues going off into one. Like normally if you make some contact, you expect a shot.
Yeah.
But the next thing I know, I was spun out. Like, that's how fast. That's how fast like we spun. Like my car was completely whipped around before I even hit the wall.
Yeah.
Like that's a fast wreck at the fastest part of the track too.
Yeah.
And then I smacked the wall. Same thing as what he said. My leg hit the steering column, so I had like a dead leg.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass. That was like, or at least try. Like I'm not a fighter, but I was like, I was mad, especially because like at the time I didn't have 2 cars. I had one being built.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I had. I'm like, man, I'm gonna try and fight him. Well, I was parked completely up against the wall, so like to get out of my car, I had to get onto the wall.
Yeah.
And there was, well, you said you had a concussion and stuff like that, and there's people in your window, so I'm like you said, I'm seeing red. I just jumped on the car.
Yeah.
And initially when I was in the air, I was like, I'm going to spear through the windshield. And I think the only reason I have legs today is because I tucked and did a cannonball at the last second, because that would not have been good for my legs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to fight, and then I don't know, I just saw red, because I really don't think yet you and I have ever actually fought.
No, we haven't.
I know we've yelled at each other a lot,
Yeah.
but a lot of the fights that have ever taken place has been between our teams.
Yeah. Did you ever think that like if we were to just gone and fought, like at some point in our racing career, that like we would have moved past it, or just not had some of the rec race cars that we did on track, or like no.
I don't
I've
think
always
so.
wondered that. Like if we had just had a fight and just got it over with, like would it have ever changed like our rivalry? But
I don't think it would have changed anything, just because like at the time, like me jumping on Tyler's car was not just a 2020 thing. It was not just a 2019 thing. Like we had been the top 2 cars of Dominion every single week for, I don't know what you did in 2018, but I didn't race in 2018.
I didn't. I traveled around, so I only raced 2 races.
Yeah, so we didn't clash in 2018, but in 2017 it was the same situation as 2019, and also what 2020 was setting up to be.
Yeah.
Where it was just us 2 beating and banging every single week, and it never failed that it would just come down to us. And like every once in a while somebody would come in, like Peyton would come in, or Oakley would have a good night, but normally it was us. And for the championship, every time it was always just us.
Yeah.
I think both championships might have been settled by less than 10 points.
Yeah.
Which is less than 5 spots on the track.
Yeah.
And so when you run up front like that, it's just gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going for the win. That's what we all come here for.
Yeah.
You're just gonna run into each other, and especially when you do it once, and it's like, well, you think you owe me one. Well,
Right.
you get me back harder. Now I think I owe you one.
Yeah.
And then I get you back harder, and you're more pissed off. I'm more pissed off, and it just gets to a boiling point that something like that happens. But, maybe we're just assholes. It's like I've never seen anybody jump on a race car before, so I was pretty mad.
A couple of fucking young kids just wanting to win races and win championships. I mean, and both of us were pretty fucking hard-headed at times, and it's just hard racing. At the end of the day, it's like you said, you're going to run up front, you're going to make contact, and you're going to have stuff happen.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it goes as far back as 2017. We never really had any wrecks, I think, that put us out of the race. Maybe one where I feel like I probably ran over you that night. Do you remember that one?
No.
Back in 17? There's smoke coming off of both
Oh my
cars.
god, I have a picture of that.
Yeah, my tire blew under caution, and you actually went on the. I think you won.
I won the race, yeah. Because going on, I think I cut. What happened? Something. I got like a 4-car length lead on the late race start.
Yeah.
And I went off into 3, and I could not turn. I was in the 3rd groove, and my spotter's like, "Don't give up! What are you doing? What are you doing?" And whoever was behind me almost came back and passed me, but I did win that night.
Yeah.
But that was another one of them nights where I was like, okay, well, even though I won, I'm still pissed at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it never failed. Like I feel like the way that we raced each other, if we did it for 15th, we probably would have been just as pissed.
Well, so I do remember there was like a night where I think they were making a big deal out of maybe like Peyton and Phillip coming, or maybe it was like a national championship battle, and God, I don't know. I don't think they would have.
was there too.
Yeah, I don't think they had some like big announcer here, and I can't remember who it was, but they were telling me after the race that like you and I were like running our ass off for 8th because like we're in the track points, and they're like, "What? look back here, like there's a hell of a battle for the Track Boys Championship going back at 8th, and these two are running the hell out of one another.
Oh my God! You know what? That was the night that fight broke out. That everybody was wrecking each other.
Was it?
Because we were 8th in the first race. I was leading.
Yeah.
And you ran me down, and you spun me.
Yeah.
And that was how we started racing for 8th, because I wrecked the Jersey Mike car.
Yeah.
People still quote me on
that's
that.
right.
In the one video, I'm like, I wrecked the fucking Jersey Mike car. I wrecked the fucking Jersey Mike car. I didn't mean to wreck the Jersey Mike car. And then in the second race, it switched because there's an 8-car invert. We finished 8th and 7th. He was leading, and I wrecked him, accidentally. I wrecked him.
Yeah.
And then that was how the whole Paul Green and Trent, and then Paul Green and me, and then Trent and you, that's how that actually started. That's crazy that just came full circle.
Yeah, so the funny thing about that night is when I spun you, I had almost had you clear at one point, and I had a different guy spotting for me that night, and I remember him saying, hold him out there, and instead of me trying to clear you, I backed it up a little bit. Well, then my car started getting loose up off the bottom, and you drove back to me to where you could kind of hold the position on me and get an advantage. And I was like, shit! Now I'm pinned. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I just kept driving you, and I went down the corner, and the power steering pump belt broke, and I just lost all power steering, went in the corner and turned you, and obviously the water pump's not spinning, so it's shooting water out of the car and everything. So I come in the pits, and they literally put a belt on it under caution and sent me back out. So I remember I was like, fuck, this is the last thing I wanted to do was run into you in the middle of the points battle, because we've already had our run-ins. I'm like, God, I'm gonna feel like an idiot walking down here. He ain't gonna believe me, but I'm gonna just try to make an attempt. And I walked down there, I was like, dude, I'm really sorry, the power steering belt broke, I'll show you the belt, we put a new one on under caution. You're just like, yeah man, whatever, it's all good, whatever. So you just total dickhead, and I'm like, dude, I swear, I'm really sorry. I didn't turn you on purpose, and you're like, yeah, man, it's what it is, it is. But whatever, whatever, fuck it, whatever.
And then the worst part is,
and we got in the next race, and I'm leading, and then you dump me, and I'm like, this motherfucker just dumped me, and I swore, it wasn't my fault. I just lost all power steering. So I was like, motherfucker, that really pissed me off. Then, to be honest, I don't know if Paul was intentionally trying to do what he was doing.
100%.
So, I'm sure he probably wasn't making it easy on you.
Well, what he was doing is that Paul he had decent speed towards the end of the year. When this happened, he wasn't the last place car anymore. He could stay on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden the lead lap car is getting lapped 3 laps after the green flag. So I was behind Mike Looney. I ran because I got sent to the back when I spun him. So I ran back to 5th or something like that. I was behind Mike Looney. Mike Looney passes in with ease. He stays on the bottom, lets Mike go. I get to him. Now he's back running the racing line. And he's stopping, fully, almost stopping, getting into the corner. Yeah. So I lock it up the one time. I slide out of the groove. We go down into 3. He does the same thing again. I just sent him.
Yeah.
And then NASCAR sends me to the back. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're trying to tell me I'm wrecking, this guy's car owner?
Yeah.
You don't see anything with this? And then it happens again. And they sent me to the back again. Yeah. I'm like, there's no way. My spark comes on the radio. Hughes is 3 spots behind Trent. Do you want him to get him? I was like, send his ass. Get him now. Sure enough, he clears Trent. Trent pushes him into the corner. Up the track, turn. And then he gets straightened out. Paul Green comes from the back and just runs into Trent's fuel cell down in the infield. And then I think that was it for the race.
Yeah.
And then everything broke out after that.
Yeah.
Justin, don't. Justin, don't.
That was a crazy night.
So I'll say, like the first one, it looked like Paul was intentionally trying to do something. The second one, it looked to me like you just flat ran him the fuck over. I was like, it looked like you were just behind him and you just decided to dump him.
But he was a lap down.
I know, but it still looked like you just fucking ran him over.
You don't see anything where he's letting every car go.
Oh, I know the deal, but it just looked like you dumped him on purpose.
The story would have been different had I got to you, like myself.
Would you have dumped me?
Oh yeah,
For a second time?
100%. Oh yeah, because you had somebody do your dirty work. So I never got to him because I spun Paul Green again.
Yeah.
So
the wild thing about that second race was when you spun me, I ended up hitting the wall and knocking the clip off that car, and it was not handling great. And I was like, man, we're making a night out of it. Like we're driving. It'll be a good points night until Trent spun me. Yeah. He was going to make sure it was not a good points night.
Yeah.
And then the meeting next week, they drug us in. You remember that? They drug us in. You, me, Paul, and I think your dad. And they were like, listen, if any fucking car touches another one, we're just going to park you both. Like,
I remember that. And I nodded my head the same dickhead way that I said the night. I was like, it's all good. No problems for me. And then we got in the elevator. I started cussing out Paul.
You started going.
I started going at his car owner. He's like, he said something though. Like I was gonna keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
But it wasn't nothing aggressive. I was just pissed off. Like he had made a joke, like a lighthearted joke. And I just went at him. I just started spazzing out. And he was sitting in the corner of the elevator like this. And like we walked down to the track opening and Tyler's like, good luck. I'm like, good luck, man. Remember that when we were walking?
Yeah.
So when Doug says it's okay, it's really not okay.
Yeah. If he's got that like, yeah, man, it's whatever attitude, you're probably just gonna get fucking flat.
See, I don't think I'm like that no more. I think
I think you've mellowed out some. Hey! You know what you should do? After I say you've mellowed out some, insert the clip of like him pushing the helmet off and like him running into people. Fuck that motherfucker. There's been a couple of times this year you've gotten into it with some people.
But see, my thing is this year is like a lot of the beef that I've had is not with people that I should be around. Because like when I have beef with you, I know I'm going to have a problem with you next week.
Right.
So sometimes you got to make a statement, whether that's hitting you or some after the race thing. It's like you got to make your voice known. It's like if you keep running into me, I'm not going to take your shit. But the thing with this year is that something will happen to me and then I'll get into it with somebody that's not ever around me. So it's like how I can be as mad as I want.
Yeah.
But am I going to risk my NASCAR license against a guy that runs 7th every week?
Right.
Am I going to throw, because I'm going for the national championship, I'd be throwing a lot away to have beef with somebody that, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter.
Right.
In my opinion, our goals back in the day were the track championship.
Yep.
So whatever you did to me completely mattered.
Yeah.
And I couldn't let you, like, if you run me in the, if you do it 2 weeks in a row, that's 2 times too many.
Yeah.
Especially without hitting your back.
Yeah.
But I think that's how rivalries work. Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I'll say, like, the one thing that kind of started all this, and I'll take it as far back as 2017. So when we started running for the championship up here, and I think we started off the year pretty hot, and we won a race or two right out of the gate. And I just remember Ryan Burroughs walking up to me, crew chief for Nick the year before, and he was like, listen, if you're going to run up here all year against Barnes, like, just be ready, they're going to protest your shit. So I was like, all right. So we went the first couple races and everything was fine. And I think you started kind of coming on strong. You got DQ'd for fuel.
I won 5 races in a row.
Yeah.
And look, I'll fully admit, like,
now you'll admit it.
If you're admitting that, you back to me. I won 5 races in a row here. And then on the 6th race, I got a phone call in the middle of the week saying, hey, you want to try some shit with fuel? I said, sure. I win the race by 3/4 of a track.
Yeah.
And the fuel shit was mostly just for qualifying.
Yeah.
But it still stayed in your fuel,
Yeah.
So then they test the fuel after the race is over. I'm like, I'm fucked. Like, I'm screwed. And I knew it. I still had to plead my case, whatever. But I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then.
So the next week we come back and like we get protested for brake ducts. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, brake ducts? Like, what the fuck? Like, what are you protesting? They're like, oh, it's pointed at the tire. Like, you're not allowed to point it at the tire. It's supposed to be pointed at the rotor or the caliper. And I was like, what the fuck does it matter? So they get to looking at it, and sure enough, like, it's pointed at the tire. So they threw me out. So we had to go back and find photos of the car that had tape across the brake duct hole. So we went and appealed it, and we proved, like, hey, like, there was no air moving through these brake ducts, even though they're pointing at the tire, like, they're taped up. So they ended up reversing it, and we got our spot back. And the rest of the year, I was like on edge. Like, I'm like, fuck, like, what else are they going to try to see, like, that I don't see, you know, and they get me. So the thing about that year was my dad was battling cancer, and Paul was kind of just shifting his focus a little bit. He was focusing more on his business and worrying less about the race, and he wasn't coming around as much. And at the time, like in 16, I just kind of started working on the race cars a little bit more, and that year I went through a huge learning curve. And as you were winning races and checking out in the points, I'm struggling, and like I'm on the phone with Jay Hedgecock and my old K&N crew chief and other guys like every week, you know, trying to get help over the phone to like come out and make adjustments to my own car so I can get back in and try to beat you and be a little bit faster. Well, you know, on top of that, I got me worrying about getting protested throughout the week. So I'm like, shit, like what's going on? You know, like I'm trying to make sure like everything's in line. So later in the season, I finally get the car where I feel like it's really good. And also we had an engine problem at the beginning of the year, and we had to go back to one of our old motors. It was an old Ford built, and that thing was heavy. It was down on horsepower. We were running the same weight as what the Chevy spec motors were at the time, which Chevy spec motor was like 20 better than what that Ford built was. I finally get a win, and then I come back the next week and I think I won again. And then I think you had maybe picked up another win or two. And then they pulled our transmissions one week. You guys must have seen the drive shaft laying on the ground. Yeah. The drive shaft was a 2.5-inch drive shaft. And I remember you guys protested us in race 1 of the following week. And I was standing there, I was like, I'll yank that motherfucking drive shaft out right now and prove to them that it's fine. Fuck them. You know, I'll do it right now. So they were like, no, like we'll wait till after the second race. We go into the second race, or we were in between race 1 and 2, and Tommy was down there making sure like we didn't do nothing funky. So Paul crawls up underneath the car and he comes out and he's got like these big eyes and he's like, drive shaft's 2.5 inches. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, drive shaft's 2.5 inches. So I was like, give me them calipers. So I crawl up underneath, and sure enough, I measured it like 3 times, and I'm like, oh fuck, and my heart's sinking. Because I knew like y'all were gonna, you know, get a DQ out of me. So I just rolled out from underneath the car, and I looked at Paul, I was like, what's wrong? And we had another car sitting there. We measured that one, and it was right. So I just looked at Tommy, I was like, look, it's wrong. Like, DQ me for this race. Like, I'll take the DQ, go tell them it's wrong. We're going to swap it. We'll put the right one in, and we'll go race 2, because I'd rather take 1 DQ than 2. Yeah. So take the DQ, start dead last. Car wasn't that great in race 1. I think I ran like 5th. Race 2, I'm coming through the field, and I see you. I'm like, I'm just going to fucking run him over when I get to him. And I ended up getting by you with pretty much ease, but I remember coming up off the corner, like I was squeezing you like out towards the wall, and you backed out really quick. So then later in the run, you blew the right front. Yeah.
That was, prior to you wrecking me, that was the hardest hit I ever took. Yeah. I blew a right front coming out of turn 4 and went head on into the wall. Like, dude, that was, I hit the wall so hard. We're talking about concussions. Yeah. I hit the wall so hard. My adrenaline stayed with me, and he'll say the rest of the story, but in tech, after the race was over, I unbuckled my belts. I literally couldn't move my legs because my brain, it went from throbbing to just numb. And I couldn't feel my legs. They had to lift me out of the car, come over. They gave me an IV, all this other stuff, but I'll let you tell the rest.
So you wreck, and you guys went, I think, working on the car. I don't know if you were making too much of an effort before it happened, but I get to race him. I was up to second, I think, at this point by the time you wrecked. And I lined up on the outside of Jeff, and man, I love beating Jeff up on the outside. That guy would be that guy would be out front every race, and you could just line up beside him and just drive around him on the top side every week. So I drove around him, and like I had about a half a car on him, and up off of 2, I'm feeling him get into my left rear. I'm like, fuck, like I could use this win because I could use the extra bonus points going into the last race, have a little bit more cushion. I think it was like 4 or 5 bonus points. Well, like it was substantial.
So with the DQ in race 1, he had a lead because of my fuel disqualification.
Right.
So
well, no, you got the lead back naturally, and then
the way I remember it is that I had 2 points on you after you got disqualified in race 1.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So like you were beating me by a lot prior to you getting disqualified before that. So with me, we got a lot of cars too. So I would say I was probably, with me wrecking out and not going back on the track, I probably would have finished like 17, 18. I was like the late teens, and then you were running second.
Yeah.
So that would be whatever the point differential between second and wherever I finished. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But
so I was just trying to be a little bit. I was probably being a little bit greedy at the time. It was just not like being content with second. Like I should have just probably dropped in behind Jeff. But I got a hell of a restart, and I was almost clear of him, but I couldn't just quite get in front of him. And every time there was like 4 or 5 laps in a row. I remember we come up off of 2, and he had me like kind of pinned up and sideways and into my left rear, and finally he got to me. He got me enough out of shape to where he got like right even with me. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it to him right here. Like getting him in 3, it's his. I'm just gonna ride second. Like I'll be fine with it. So he goes down the corner and he's still beside me, and he gets sideways on entry and overcorrects and hits me in the left front, and it sends me airborne. And this was probably one of the hardest hits I had ever had, besides the one up in turn 1. He hits me, still wide open, never had any time to hit the brakes. Car hits, and I was like, oh fuck, that was hard. And I look up and the wall's still coming, and I plow the wall down and killed the car. Like literally took the engine, the transmission out, the seat, and that was about all that was salvageable out of that thing. We had that wreck, and you went back out and you gained a couple points on me. And then going into the last race, I think it came down to literally whoever finished in front of you.
It was 2 points, which was 1 position.
Yeah.
I think so. So 2 points was 1 position, and so going into the last race, I think had you beat me by 1 spot, or had you won and I finished second, you would have won, because I think it was like 3 or 4 points from first to second.
Yeah.
But had we tied, I think it would have had the tiebreaker because I had more wins.
Yeah.
So it was really, that's insane to think about how tight that is after like a 20 race season.
Yeah, and after DQs, wrecks, and everything, like it was very much a back and forth season, and just came out on top. I mean, we had a brand new car that we had built that we hadn't assembled. It had a body, chassis body, front suspension, everything, rear end. It's basically a roller. So we had like a month before that last race, which was kind of nice because we had time to prep that that car for the last race. And we were just way too free. I remember like I was inside Eddie Johnson. Eddie kind of turned across my nose, and I didn't have time to back out. I turned him around. They sent me to the rear, and I drove all the way back through the field. And then I get to Mike Darn, and I'm trying to get by him, and like he's like kind of chopping me, and I gave him a shot or two, and he's flipping me off as I'm behind him, trying to get by him. And I think we finished like 4th or 5th or something, and you end up, I think, second.
I finished second to Peyton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was the first big one that they had.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, like that season, I think for me stung me the hardest because of what I was going through with my dad. Like I desperately wanted to win that championship for him, and like kind of show him that, because I knew that things weren't getting any better, and I knew things were kind of heading in a terrible direction with him. So I wanted him to see me win one before he passed. And so like that was the one that I always felt like got away from me. And I remember like after that DQ, I walked down to you and I was like, look man, like you probably never knew what I was going on or what I had going on behind the scenes, but
I knew. Well, I knew because I knew your dad a little bit. Like, cause he would come over if we weren't pissed off at each other. He would come over and be like, hey, good run tonight. He's like, thanks for running Tyler clean.
Yeah.
Because he had to thank me because we didn't do it very often. So,
Yeah.
So he would come over, he'd talk to me. He was a nice guy. Like,
Yeah.
I never had any problems with him.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I do remember you coming over, and I am not lying when I said this. Tyler came over and he just basically said what he just said. And obviously, I'm not saying it's easy for you now, but when all this is going on, it's a lot more like emotional.
Yeah.
And I kind of, after you had gotten disqualified, I kind of put myself in your shoes, and I'm like, man, dude, if that was my dad, like that, like I got choked up. Like, I'm not even kidding. I got choked up, and I had considered saying like revoking the protest, but just on my end, it's like I feel bad about it. I feel bad about it, but I think that's part of sports, though. It's like there's always like a story on the other side, but it's like we had spent so long, all year, every single race. This is the only place that we raced back in the day. So it's like we had all this like support behind me. I bring on my family. I had all these people. I'm like, I can't go back on it, you know?
Yeah.
But like I literally got like my dad was here because he was the one like that, you know, kind of stopped being a little bitch. Like, come on, like you got this. Get up, got a second race, go out there and get it. But it hit me hard because I put myself in your shoes momentarily. And obviously I can't ever fully be in your shoes.
Yeah.
But in that moment, like it hit me like a rock. I felt horrible.
Good.
But I know. Okay, I'm glad that you said that because another part of me, a very small part of me, because I wasn't even going to say this until you just made me a part of me was like, this asshole, like he tried to guilt me, and it worked. It worked, but
No, like
it was a realistic thing. I agree.
Yeah.
Like I know what you're saying. Like it was a realistic thing, and it's funny. It's funny you said that because I did have that slight thing. I'm like, this fucking guy. He's really using his dad. Like that's crazy.
No, like,
But-
and there was a lot of emotion, not only outside of my dad, but just like I worked my ass off that year, and I gave up my full-time job to go back and I basically worked a part-time job so I could be in the shop on Mondays and at the tracks on Fridays testing. Weeks we weren't racing, I could be at the shop on Fridays. And then Paul eventually kind of hired me full-time. And I was working really hard in the shops, like trying to figure it out and try to figure out how to, come run better every week. And there was a lot of emotion wrapped up in that too, knowing how hard I had worked, and then all of a sudden it felt like it was stripped away from me. So at the end of the day, man, like it was really competitive, and you obviously came out on top. And like I don't have any regrets about my racing career. I do wish I would have won a championship here, but I accomplished some really cool things while I was racing. I've won the first race, the inaugural race here.
Yeah. When the lights went out.
Yeah, it was a wild race.
I'll put that clip in here. The lights went out in the very first race ever here.
He's across. Oh shit! Oh, that's not good.
What did you think when that happened? I thought I passed out.
I didn't know whether to keep racing or to slow down, like, because I was battling Nick for the lead. I'm like, I just remember, I'm like, fuck, do I keep racing? Like, I don't want to give the lead up. All I remember seeing was, like, I could barely see the white of the wall, and then I could see the red 12 on Nick's car, and I just kind of stayed between those two and just slowly slowed down. Yeah. So.
All right, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. So you accomplished some great things.
Yeah, so I feel like I accomplished some good things in my racing career. I had a lot of wins, and a lot of them were really competitive wins. I think back to the last 2 wins I ever had behind the wheel, and they were one, I won in dominating fashion on a Thursday night. I beat everybody by 3/4 of a track. We sat on the pole, had a really, probably the best car I've ever had here. Yeah. We won with that night. Came back, I think 2 weeks later, and you were obviously in the lead in the points, and there was only one mathematical way for me to win it, and that was I had to start in the back, and I had to win the race just to get the bonus points, and you had to drop out early. So I was like, I'll take my chances. I started in the back, and I drove through the field, and I drove a really smart race, meticulously passing all those cars. And it came down to one final restart with us with like 50 to go, and we went head to head. I ended up getting around you, I think maybe on the outside, and you hunted me for those last 25 laps within a car length and a half to 2 car lengths, and dogged the shit out of me. And you had already had the points championship wrapped up at that point in the race because there were so many cars that had dropped out. It wasn't going to be mathematically possible for you to make for me to make a comeback. So I knew we were going to race as hard as what we could, and I held you off. And I feel really good about that win, just knowing I came from the back. And at the end of the day, like, our rivalry, you know, I got to beat you that one last time. So obviously, like, you know, 20 happened and we had some bad deals and we got into wrecks, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember the last race actually, because I had won the championship, you won the race, and we were both down in the victory lane thing.
Yeah.
And I had to sit in the car. I had to sit in the car and wait to get out and celebrate until he got done. So I'm sitting in the car watching him. I just finished second to him in the race, but I won the championship. So I'm just watching him. Like, championship's great, but I was still thinking about the race. I'm like, he's up there celebrating like this. I'm sitting in this hot ass car waiting to get out. But it was definitely good times. I'd say I miss it. Don't miss the Bills with it.
No.
But it's always cool to like look back and like just remember it, because like if you were a fan at any point during those years at Dominion, I'm sure you remember it, because the way it seemed to me is that you were either Team Barnes or you're Team Hughes. So there's nothing, like, you had other people, but you knew what side you were on. And if something happened to one of us, you'd hear a cheer. Something happened to the other, you hear a cheer. If we got into each other, everybody's cheering.
Yeah.
Like, people knew what they were in for when they would come to the track, you know?
Yeah. There's a huge divide. Even like Dinah Mullins, like, you know, she is very much about, you know, her Peyton Sellers, her Philip Morris, and like, you know, very much about like the people who have done a lot or had a lot of success in late model racing. And I remember on Facebook one day, someone asked about like, what are some of the greatest rivalries in short track racing? And there was like all these things, and she goes on there and she's like, oh, no question, Doug Barnes and Tyler Hughes. Like, those couple of years were like the hottest rivalry. You never knew it was going to happen.
And I wish I made YouTube videos back in the day.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that I started making videos in 2021.
Yep.
And that's how my channel started, as AirDoug. But the reason I had that video, the craziest night when we wrecked each other, Paul Trent, whatever, is because I always wanted to make vlogs like that, but I just didn't know how to go about it. I didn't have a format, because like really prior to me making these videos, I didn't have anybody to base it off of, you know?
Yeah.
I had to come up with my own format, and it took me a while to do that, but I almost started it in 2020.
Yeah.
So if I had started it in 2020, there would have been a vlog where I jumped on your car.
Yeah.
Like, it would have really been, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
Because now I don't see myself doing that now. Like, you might have to get back in a race car. And maybe that might be the only way I could get that pissed off to jump on somebody's car.
Yeah, listen, I can't afford myself to get back in a race car anymore. I had a good couple of years where, you know, Paul gave me a really good budget to go racing with and race at a top level. And, you know, now that he's out, I'm crew chiefing for Mason Bailey and helping out some other guys around the track. You know, I could never afford to do that on my own.
Yeah.
And I also know how I race, so I can't afford that.
Replacing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, that's the shitty part about racing. Like, just the uncertainty of it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this is the first year in my career where I have goals for next year.
Yep.
I have never been in a position before in my life where I've had the opportunity to look at next year, because I've always been like, I hope I'm racing next year. So I got to focus on everything. Not that I'm not focusing on everything now, but I, you know, every week meant a lot to me. Not that it doesn't now, just because I didn't know what I was going to be doing next year. So I won the championship in 2017, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself for next year, but I won the championship in 2017. I had all these plans.
Yeah.
That was going to be what I hope was my first time going for a national championship.
Yeah.
So he was there too. We got invited to the Denny Hamlin Showdown race. We ran that. I ran like junk. And then I didn't race again for the rest of the year. Like, I went to Bristol and I tested one time, and I didn't race again. And it wasn't until 2019 in February that I get a call saying I can go racing again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't know if I was ever going to race again. So like in 2019, I just like took that and I ran with it. I'm like, man, I'm never going to value a race differently. I'm never going to take it for granted. Each race is like the Daytona 500 for me.
Yeah.
And it's, and now I value every race so much more because just knowing that it can be taken away. Like even in your instance, before you weren't completely done, you wrecked and you're out of the car for 3 months.
Yep.
Like that could happen tonight.
Yep.
You never know. Like it's just, I could talk about it for hours, but I just don't take it for granted. Like it's something that everybody in the stands wish they could do.
Yep.
And that's what I tell people, because I don't know if you've ever had this, like when you raced, I have people in like lower divisions, whether I know them and they're here or like go-kart drivers across the country and stuff like that, comment on my videos, and if I make like a remark like, oh, I didn't go the way I wanted tonight, like stop bitching, like you should be grateful. Like I am grateful, but at the same time, they need to be grateful too.
Yeah.
They need, like if you race in any form, you need to be grateful because there's always somebody who can.
Listen, you can be grateful and still be pissed off that you ran 8th because you want to win. Like we're always going to have that competitive nature as drivers, and like I still get the same feeling when Mason's driving. Like I'm not satisfied like with an 8th, or I guess we finished 6th at the SoBo 200 last week after the DQs, but like I still wasn't satisfied with our run because I want top 5s, I want top 3s, and I want wins. It was a great run for us, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we all want to be in victory lane, and have that spotlight on us. So it's just in our blood.
It makes me wonder about like truck series stuff, like people that get to the truck series and then they could come run for a great late model team, but instead they run in the back in the trucks.
Yeah.
I think like if those people have any competitiveness in them at all, because I feel like it would affect me if I left my house knowing that I couldn't win.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how I would approach it. I don't know how much I would enjoy it, because I know you are. And you probably know I am, just based off the way we race. I'm competitive as shit.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm playing pickleball or on the racetrack.
Yeah.
I want to win.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the end of my career if I ever got to the point where I didn't think I could win anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I had an opportunity. Paul asked me what I wanted to do one season. I can't remember which one it was, but he wanted to kind of go back K&N racing with me. And I was like, man, like, I don't want to show up on half the budget that these other guys do and run, like, barely crack the top 10. Like, I would rather take our money and go run a really good late model program and win races, because, like, I have more fun winning races, and it's just as competitive at the late model level, but on a cheaper budget than, like, what, say, ARCA is or Trucks is. So,
I say more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, like, you look at the ARCA, like I hate ARCA, to be honest. Like I don't even like watching it. Like,
to me, it's just a bunch of old ass rich kids.
Oh yeah, look at the kids that wrecked each
up.
other in Mid Ohio. Yes, I'll put that clip in here. The kids wrecking each other yesterday. The teammates.
Yeah,
but
ridiculous.
I just think like there's like 5 cars that can win in ARCA.
Yeah,
that's a lot. If you go to Martinsville or even here, there's probably 5 cars that can win here tonight.
Absolutely.
Like at the weekly level, at any track, there's probably 5 cars that can win. But if you go to the bigger races at the end of the year, Martinsville, South Boston, where you guys were last week, the Classic, anything, there's going to be 20 cars, 20, maybe even 30 cars like Martinsville that could realistically win.
Absolutely.
And you're never going to have that in ARCA.
No,
it's its own body style, like chassis, everything like that, motor pack. It's just way too expensive. This isn't it's not affordable, but it's way more affordable than anything that's higher NASCAR would be,
Yep.
And I think it provides way better racing. The tracks are unique. You're never going to find a track that's like similar. I thought that South Boston was similar to Dominion until I went to South Boston. I'm like, this is nothing like Dominion at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's a completely different track, and I struggled.
Yeah.
And God, I don't know.
One thing to look at, like Kyle Larson, he went and ran 8th in the Cars Tour. Like, this is a guy that shows up in sprint cars and dirt late models and wins like any given night and runs really well in his first appearance. And like, I mean, he didn't run that great, and he was in one of the best cars that you could possibly want to sit in late model racing.
With Josh as crew chief too.
Yeah,
so
it's nuts.
I never really envisioned this when I first started racing. And I think part of the reason why I took racing for granted is I was always thinking that next step. Like, I'm gonna get to the truck series. Like when I was in late models, like this is a stepping stone for me. But now I look at it, dude, if I'm running late models in 10 years, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have interest in running in the trucks here. I could go run the trucks right now.
Yeah.
I can't go run for a winning team in the trucks right now. So would I rather go run 10 truck series races and hope for a top 20, or would I rather run 50 late model races a year? Like not 50, but a lot of late model races and have a chance to win every single one of them.
Yeah.
Like that just makes the travel worth it, you know? Like it's a lot better. I feel like I can justify the spending.
Yeah.
Especially with the YouTube stuff, I get to document it. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's pretty cool what you're doing and bringing a lot of people some insight on, you know, short track racing. And, you know, you and people like Landon Huffman do a really good job of the videos you guys put out. So I don't watch all of them, but I do enjoy sitting down and watching them every now and then.
Yeah.
Especially when something controversial happens. So.
Yeah, we were talking about the fight video in the elevator on the way up here.
Yeah.
But all right, I feel like we have been talking for a while. So this turned from a video to a damn near podcast.
Well, before you do that, speaking of podcasts,
I was just about to shout you out. Okay, go ahead, shout your podcast out.
So I have a podcast called Clear with Contact. I do it with my buddy Cody Jordan, and we talk about everything short track racing, dirt, some NASCAR stuff, but we're trying to do some interviews with, you know, not only drivers but like people behind the scenes. I got one with HC Sellers out, one with Steve Britt, the owner of Dominion Raceway. Got one with Mason Bailey. Gonna look to do more drivers. I'd like to get you on and maybe repeat this whole conversation, or maybe you just send me the audio from it. But if y'all get bored, want to go listen to the podcast, go like and share that.
I'll put his links down in the description.
I appreciate
and
that.
And then I guess we'll wrap the video up here. I didn't really intend on this being that long. This is not the first time me and Tyler have had this conversation, like about like me jumping on his car. It all started because I made a video in 2021, I think, and like in the video I busted a joke about him. I was like, Tyler, call me, I have an idea. And I had like this skit in my head, and then he called me in the middle of the summer, I think, like the next week, and we were bullshitting on the phone because we always got along outside of racing. Like during the off season, like we still talk now and stuff. Yeah. And then we did the skit, and then we've been cool since then. So we've been meaning to do this video for a long time. But since we're coming up on the 3 year, as you're watching this, is going to be the third year since that happened. I thought it would be a good idea. It's actually his idea today. He came up to me and asked me, he's like, "Hey, you want to do that video today?" And I was like, "We got a rain delay. We've been chilling up here for a while, so we knocked it out." Yeah, so I do appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
no problem. That was cool. And I even asked him too, because I remember our phone conversation. I was like, "You're gonna admit to junking me in that?" And he's like, "Yeah, like, I'll do it." So I do respect that. And then I admitted my own stuff too during the video. So but with that being said, if you are new, be sure to subscribe. I don't know, maybe on the 4th year we'll do something like this, see if our story stays the same in a year from now. But if you are new, be sure to to also give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys later in the video.